stacking in the American Athletic Conference. Teams stacking wins, stacking trophies, stacking bowl teams, and last but certainly not least, stacking some good vibes. It's week 11 of the college football season, and we've got a brand new episode of All-American for you. I'm your host, Morgan Uber. First off, congratulations to the Memphis women's soccer team as they are American champions, the number 6 seed as they go dancing, and will be hosting LSU on Saturday night. And it will be a very busy Saturday with 6 conference football games, but we've also got one on Friday night featuring one of the 3 teams still undefeated in conference play here in the American. As number 23 ranked Tulane still in the driver's seat for that New Year's 6 bowl spot. UTSA picking up a win on the road over North Texas. SMU able to hang on in Houston in a 1-score game against Rice. Both starting QBs having to leave that game with injury. We'll get more into that. Memphis now the only 1-loss team. Florida Atlantic falling in walk-off fashion over UAB. And 5 teams sitting there with 3 conference losses. South Florida, Navy, Charlotte, UAB, and Rice. And the Rice Owls become the latest team to fall victim to the Mustangs. And here was SMU head coach Rhett Lashley after the win. Take a listen.
It is hard to win. Yes, sir. And we did everything we could to let them win that game in the first half on teams. Offense turned it over. We gave some explosive plays, right? We allowed them the opportunity to beat us, but they didn't. Yeah. And I'm telling you, it doesn't matter how you win. It just matters that you win. And I don't know the next time we play those guys, but Mayor Aaron Johnson has him a cup.
We now welcome in our very own Rice alum, the former Owls quarterback, Taylor McHargue. Taylor, I'm going to, show you some favoritism here because you could have easily had some bias picking your alma mater, but you went against Rice. You had SMU. The Mustangs end up pulling off the win. They were tested, really, for the first time in conference play. What impressed you in this one here?
Well, part of it is exactly what Coach Lashley talked about, that they figured out a way to close out a win. And it did get ugly at times. But if you go back and look at the stat line, I think what was most interesting for SMU and maybe what was most impressive is that Rice Owls offense. It was the top passing offense in the conference coming into that game, and they held Rice to under 170 yards of passing efficiency and offense. And for SMU, I think that's been the key in their 5 straight wins in conference play, really dominating, smothering defense. I thought on the other side, it wasn't the offensive performance that we've seen, but Kevin Jennings coming off the bench from the backup spot, I thought he did some nice things late in that game. But again, to go back to what Coach Lashley said, to get a conference win on the road against a Rice team that is clearly they're playing well. They're not closing out games, but they're playing better than we've seen in the past from them. It's a big win for SMU to keep that unblemished conference record.
The Mustangs defense still holding steady, number 8 in the country in total defense. But this week, they're going to be tested against another top 11 team in the nation in total offense in North Texas, who has been impressive. This will be the first and last time SMU will meet as American Conference opponents. The Mean Green have been really impressive in the second half, outscoring opponents, Taylor, 76-38, and they're doing it against some of the top teams here in the conference, Tulane, Memphis, and UTSA. 3 straight 1-score games against these opponents here. What's it going to take for North Texas to get over the hump and get out to a faster start against SMU? Do they have it in them this week?
They've got to figure out a way to get some stops in the first half, and that's been the challenge. Clearly, they're figuring out something coming out of the locker room and playing better. We had them a week ago, and the issues that we saw in the first half that they showed against UTSA, those got cleaned up. You saw better tackling. You saw some tackles for loss, some turnovers created. But in the first half, UTSA got about whatever they wanted, ran the football for over 200 yards in the first half. And I think you're going to see something similar in terms of the game plan from SMU. And it's not a secret right now. North Texas is having a tough time stopping the run game. That 3-3 defense where they play a light box in the interior. Teams are running right at them, and it's why you see North Texas, they're dead last in FBS in total defense. So this entire game comes down to they've got to figure out a way to get some stops, especially early in that first half against SMU.
On the other side of the ball for North Texas, quarterback to quarterback, how would you assess the job that Chandler Rogers has done? And what do you like about North Texas's offense, having him as the leader of the offense?
Well, they're one of the best offenses in the country about moving the football around to different targets. 6 different receivers with over 15 catches in that offense, and it's a staple of the Eric Morris offense that he brought from Incarnate Word and then to Washington State and now to North Texas. And Chandler Rogers has just done a fantastic job of finding the open guy and getting the ball to them on time. He's not locking in on Jamori Macklin, their top target, or anybody else on the outside. He is spreading the ball around to whoever's open, going through his progression. And I think he's one of the top quarterbacks in the conference at being on time and being accurate.
Well, Friday Night Lights, North Texas traveling to Gerald J. Ford Stadium. Who do you got in this one?
Yeah, I'm going with SMU again. I think we've seen they finally got tested in a way that they hadn't been in the 4 previous weeks. And I think that was a hurdle for them. Probably something that Coach Lashley and his staff are a little bit happy about, that they did get tested late and they closed out that win. I think there's too much firepower on the offensive side for SMU. North Texas struggling to get stops, so I'm going to go with SMU in this one.
Well, in Denton, UTSA coming up with 15 straight conference games, and that is just the way that the Roadrunners roll, or should I say bull. Bowling is just right up their alley for UTSA. Take a look here at the celebration that ensued after that win over North Texas.
We're going!
You see Coach Traylor there at the end of that, Taylor. It was a pretty good turnout for UTSA fans, getting them going. I remember looking over, hearing him hype up the crowd after that win in that exact moment. What has made him so special, and what has made this program so dominant under Coach Traylor for the Roadrunners?
They've done it the right way. It's a deep roster. Even in the first part of the season, when you saw some of their injuries, it's been sort of the next man up mentality in a lot of ways on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. And I think the other thing that just stands out, that it's hard to measure, but it's effort for UTSA. When you watch them on film, they have guys consistently flying to the football. Morgan, that's one of the things that other staffs have talked to us about when we have the meetings with them, that UTSA players, there's a level of intensity that's really hard to find, and it's hard to quantify how you create that. But Jeff Traylor and his staff have done a fantastic job of that. And his kids, they play really hard for 4 quarters every week, no matter who the opponent is.
UTSA will be hosting Rice this weekend. The biggest injury news out of that game, JT Daniels left the SMU game. Head coach Mike Bloomgren said that he is doubtful for this one against the Roadrunners. So, Taylor, what can we expect from backup quarterback Chase Jenkins here now making his first start?
Chase Jenkins is a guy that Rice is very high on, and they've talked about how they feel like this guy could be the future at the quarterback spot. The challenge against UTSA is the pass rush, led by Trey Moore. 3 different times so far this season, he's been the conference player of the week, has over 12 sacks already to this point in the year. So for Chase Jenkins and for Rice, you're going to see a lot of half-field reads. You're going to see a lot of rolling the pocket, moving him away from a side that I think Trey Moore lines up on. And then for Rice, they've got to clean up some of the issues that they had against SMU. 10 penalties and 3 turnovers. They were really fortunate to still be in that game late in the game. Special teams came up big for the Owls. But against UTSA on the road with your backup quarterback, you're going to have to see close to a perfect game. And they're going to have to create some takeaways on the other side, make this a little bit sloppy, right? Try to figure out a way to get UTSA and Frank Harris uncomfortable in a game that Rice needs, right? They still need 2 more wins out of these last 3 to get to bowl eligibility.
Playmakers on both sides for both of these teams. Which matchup are you most intrigued to see?
Yeah, I go back to Trey Moore and the offensive line for Rice. Can the Rice offensive line, with their backup quarterback in the game, slow down that pass rush? Because we saw it firsthand last week, and we've seen it a couple times in person. Trey Moore is unbelievable at getting after the quarterback. And even if you had your veteran starting, you still would be uncomfortable a little bit on how you protect that edge. Now with your backup and Chase Jenkins in, I think that's the critical piece to this game, because if he makes Chase Jenkins consistently uncomfortable and they're getting 3 and outs and quick stops, I think Rice is going to have a really hard time in this game.
Relentless mentality is the word that the coaching staff for UTSA used to describe Trey Moore, the same phrase that Moore used to describe himself. Certainly going to be an interesting matchup to keep your eye on. Taylor, with this game, the nightcap on Saturday night, UTSA Rice, who you got?
Yeah, going with the Roadrunners. I think they stay perfect in conference play. Maybe would feel a little bit differently about this if Rice was healthy coming into it, but with Chase Jenkins getting the start at the backup spot in place of JT Daniels, I think it's too much to ask for your freshman backup of going with UTSA.
Well, sometimes it's about finding a way, avoiding a wipeout. And that is exactly what Tulane head coach Willie Fritz has done, just riding the wave. And Tulane checking in at number 23, their great locker room celebration after their win against East Carolina last week. And, you know, this was a game where you see Tulane, they should 100% go out and be able to dominate an 8-1 team where they're facing, at the time, a 1-7 East Carolina team. 13-10, the final score. Taylor, what surprised you about this one?
Well, the first thing that I would say didn't surprise me is that East Carolina is still playing really well on the defensive side of the ball. And that's been something we've seen throughout the season. Mike Houston's team still playing with a lot of energy and enthusiasm, especially at home. I thought what surprised me, though, for Tulane was their inability to punch the ball in the red zone. They had 3 different trips inside the 10-yard line where they settled for a field goal, 2 of which they made. One ended up getting pushed back, and then they miss a 31-yarder. But for Tulane, I think they realized that they could stop East Carolina for the most part on the offensive side, and that East Carolina was not getting a ton of production. So they traded some field goals and opportunities where if it's a little closer game or if it's a different opponent that has more firepower on the offensive side, Tulane probably goes for it in those situations. But down the stretch here, they're going to have to figure out a way to be better at 2 areas. One, closing out their opponents. We've seen a couple earlier in the season where they let teams claw back in. Think about North Texas, claw back in a game late. And the other piece is red zone offensive efficiency. They have got to figure out a way to punch the ball into the end zone, create touchdowns instead of field goals.
Tulane's largest margin of victory in conference play, Taylor, a 12-point win over UAB. Since then, they've won by 10, 7, 2, and 3 in these last 4 games. What is the single biggest challenge right now that you're seeing with Tulane?
On the offensive side, there's not a ton of explosive plays. You're seeing sustained drives. They're clipping along 8 to 10 play drives. And then if anything goes wrong, if you have a pre-snap penalty, post-snap penalty, it stalls the drive. And I think that's where you're seeing some of the field goal issues last week against East Carolina. And then the games that they haven't closed out, it just feels like they've lost a little bit of intensity late in the third quarter and in the fourth quarter, which is not what we've come to know from Willie Fritz-led teams. I think this week against Tulsa is an opportunity, a team that they're much better than Tulsa. It's a better roster right now. There's better talent, more experience, especially at the quarterback spot with Michael Pratt. This is a game that I'm looking for Tulane. They should win convincingly. If this is another one-score close game or they let Tulsa back in, now you start to really get concerned because here in a couple weeks, they've got UTSA coming to town in what we are expecting to be a showdown, a potential, if both teams are still unbeaten in conference play, potential that one of these teams ends up hosting the conference championship.
Yeah, definitely have had that one circled on our calendars all year long, and it just continues to build with the anticipation as both teams just continue to win. Another team that just has one flub here in conference play, the Memphis Tigers, they're still in contention for this conference championship. There they are, smashing the rock in the post-game celebration, but Memphis also having some fun with the bubble machine. The Tigers saying, you can't burst our bubble. They get the 59-50 win over South Florida. We've talked about a number of quarterbacks going down in Week 10. Memphis, no exception to that. Here was Coach Silverfield on his starting quarterback, Seth Hennigan's status.
Yeah, Seth will be day-to-day to figure it out, but, obviously we don't practice today. So we'll have a better understanding as the week progresses. If he can't go, then we got great faith in Tevin Carter and the rest of our quarterbacks to be able to run our offense and handle our offense. Obviously, we'll judge Seth on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, Blake Watson, same deal, day-to-day, see if he can go. And we'll continue to look at as we monitor the rest of our team.
One of the best plays of the entire weekend, redshirt freshman Tevin Carter coming in first play after Hennigan goes down and hits Rock Taylor for an 85-yard touchdown. Certainly showed some poise, but Taylor, what could the impact be if normal starter Seth Hennigan cannot go this week?
Well, I think the benefit in this game really comes down on the other side of the ball for Memphis, that they're not facing a team like they did last week in South Florida, where there was up-tempo, really electric offense. It's a very different style that they're facing this week against Charlotte. And so if you have your backup quarterback in the game, I think this is a much better matchup than had he had to play the entire week last week against South Florida. Charlotte, it's a top 30 passing defense. They've done a really nice job defending the pass. their front gets after the quarterback. And I think that's going to be the biggest challenge for Memphis with a backup quarterback in the game, similar to what we talked about with Rice, protecting him, making him feel comfortable. I put the challenge in this game on Memphis on the defensive side. Can they get enough stops against Trexler, Ivy, and Charlotte on the offensive side, who's coming off a big win in their own right against Tulsa on the road? But again, if this comes down to your offense in a backup quarterback spot having to save the game for you late, and this turns into some sort of shootout, I think that's where it benefits Charlotte, but that's not the style of play that we've seen from Charlotte to this point in the season.
Quarterback Trexler Ivy, I talked with him this week. We're on the call for this game here this weekend. He said, look, I'm playing the most confident I have. This is a team that came off an overtime win. He was able to get that W for his team on the road, down 17 against Tulsa. So it should be interesting. Blake Watson for Memphis also day-to-day at this point. They're starting running back. Since we are on the call with our partner, Richard Cross, I'm not going to have you make the pick, but for the 49ers, in order for them to win this game, for you, what's the single biggest thing it comes down to?
Yeah, ball control, old school style football. You want to see, if you're a Charlotte fan, your team dominate time of possession, capitalize in the red zone, take care of the football, all the things that sound, coach speaky, all the cliches, but they have to do that against this Memphis team, because even with a backup in the game at the quarterback spot and potentially Blake Watson down as well, this is still a really talented Memphis team on the outside. You give them extra possessions, you give them short fields, they're going to make you pay for it. So for Charlotte, capitalize in the red zone and chew up time of possession. You want to see them well over 35 minutes if they have a chance to win this game.
2 p.m. Eastern on ESPN+. Again, we will be on that call as we now take a look at the rest of the Saturday slate. We've got a game in every single TV window. Temple at South Florida, Tulsa at Tulane, both at noon Eastern. UAB at Navy, 3:30 p.m. Eastern. That one on CBS Sports Network. East Carolina at Florida Atlantic at 4 p.m. Eastern on ESPN+. And Rice at UTSA, the final game of the day, that one at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPNU. Taylor, as you take a look at this Saturday slate, in your opinion, which of these games is the most meaningful matchup?
Well, yeah, out of the games that we haven't talked about, I really think a game that I'm looking at is Alex Golish's team sitting there with 4 wins. They're playing Temple at home, 2 really high-powered offenses. And for his first year there, again, we've talked a lot about some of the marquee matchups and implications for the conference championship. But first year for Alex Golish, sitting there with 4 wins, it's still a team that I think could get to a bowl. This would be their 5th win if they beat Temple, and what a huge turnaround that would be if they could figure out a way to get to 6 wins. I have that game circled as one that I'm still interested in.
You mentioned that 6-win number. A lot of teams right now in the American on the cusp of bowl eligibility. We have 4 teams that are a lock, but let's now take a look at the 3 teams here, 3 4-win teams that could lay a strike and go bowling. Florida Atlantic, Rice, and South Florida. As you look at what these 3 teams have coming up next to finish out their season, which of the 3 are most likely to go bowling, Taylor?
I think most likely, again, is South Florida, just, again, because they've got 2 home games against teams that are in the bottom third of the conference with Temple and Charlotte. So you would imagine, if you're a Bulls fan, pretty favorable end of the schedule there. Rice, really challenging game coming up against UTSA, the stretch that we've talked about that they had to go through with Tulane, SMU, and UTSA. If it's not South Florida behind them, I would say Rice. And then for FAU, it's a tough stretch coming down. They still have to play Tulane, then a road game at Rice, which that game may come down for both of these teams to the winner of that gets to go bowling.
Those 3 teams, just need 2 wins in their next 3 to go bowling. But now we have a few teams that have to be perfect down the stretch. We've got 6 teams in the American that are still in the hunt. UAB, Charlotte, North Texas, Temple, Tulsa, and Navy. Navy currently they still have Army on their schedule. So they technically have 4 teams, but that does not count against their bowl eligibility because those bowls will be decided ahead of the Army-Navy game. So Taylor, of these teams, who is most likely, in your opinion, to win out and hit that magic number 6?
Yeah, I think UAB has a legitimate chance. Now, 2 road tests against Navy and North Texas, but again, you go through strength of schedule and opportunities where you're being tested on the road these are against teams that are in the bottom half of the conference. It's going to be challenging for Trent Dilfer and his team, especially with the way they're struggling on the defensive side. But if there's a team out of this group that I think has a chance to get there, I would say it's the Blazers.
You mentioned UAB and the Blazers, and you know who's really going to like the sound of that? Jacob Zeno, our guest coming up here on the show in just a few minutes. Taylor, we appreciate you as always. I'm looking forward to seeing you here this weekend in Charlotte on the call, and can't wait to be back with you again next week. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Morgan.
He's got to get this offense going. Jacob Zeno trying to engineer a tying drive. He's got his man wide open. Streaking down the field, Tajon Palmer. Goodbye.
For UAB, it was a homecoming to remember as quarterback Jacob Zeno set the Blazers' FBS school record with 484 passing yards to give the Blazers the 45-42 victory over Florida Atlantic. And joining us right now is the record setter himself, Jacob Zeno. Jacob, great to have you here with us. First off, what was going through your mind as you saw the ball go through the uprights?
Relief. We dug ourselves in a hole in the second half, especially in that third quarter. So, it was good to come back out in the fourth quarter and play the ball that we knew that we could play. We knew that we were going to have a chance at the end. And so, everybody just did their job, and we were able to come out with the win.
The tying drive, 4 minutes to play, you hit Tajon Palmer with a 70-yard touchdown pass. What worked so well that play in particular to get him so open?
It was luck, really, because so we knew the route was on and everything. And so I'm sitting back there, and I'm like, are they going to adjust to this? And so before I snapped the ball, I'm like, if they don't move, this is going to be a touchdown. And, I snapped it, the safety didn't move. So, that was probably one of the easiest touchdowns of my college career.
That's amazing. How would you say your connection with him off the field really translates to what we see in game?
I mean, it's a lot. That's my roommate. So we've been like two peas in a pot since I got here. That's my man. That's my dude. And, our connection is big from that.
What does a win like that do for this team here moving forward with 3 games to go in the season?
A lot of confidence. It helps with our confidence because, we've been struggling. Coach Dilfer's been preaching about, just getting better, getting 1% better. And it's easier said than done. You do it day in, day out, and then on Saturdays when you don't see the result, it's kind of defeating. So to know that we did it day in, day out, and we got that win, it's extra confidence for these next 3 games to get to a bowl game.
You hadn't played in 2 weeks. For you to go out and have the career day that you did, set program records, what was your focus on in practice to be able to have a day like that?
Just staying focused. Not playing in 2 weeks is hard, especially with my position, with the timing and everything like that. So, I just wanted to go out there and make sure I was good with the game plan, which I was. And, when Saturday came, I just trust my preparation. So I just went out there with a clear mind and just play football.
484 passing yards, 5 TDs. You've played 22 games in your college career. Where does that one stack up?
Probably second or third. I still have to give it to the Big 12 championship and playing in the Sugar Bowl. Those are still up there. But that this past game is up there.
For you right now to be 4th in the nation in completion percentage, what would you say has really allowed for the consistency in your accuracy and decision making in this offense?
My preparation. In the offseason, I spend a lot of time with those guys, with Mort, with Dilfer, with Coleman, getting the offense down. And it just comes through reps. I've probably thrown 5,000, 6,000, I don't even know how many balls I've thrown in the offseason. And so getting that timing down with the guys, it helps. So all of this is just the end work of everything that we've been doing in the offseason.
Yeah, speaking of your head coach, Trent Dilfer, an NFL quarterback great, when you look at your progression from this past offseason to where you are right now, week 11, what has he had the biggest impact on your game?
The mental side of my game. I trust my physical abilities, but, not just Dilfer, but Mortensen with Coleman, really everybody in the building. They've took my mental game of football to a whole nother level. I'm way better than what I was last year, even, 2 years ago. And so that's really the biggest impact that they've had on me. And, it's showing out on the field.
Now you head up to Navy, head up to Annapolis. What is the personal significance of this game for you facing the Naval Academy?
It's special, especially playing on Veterans Day. But, I have a special place in my heart for the military. My grandpa was in the military. So growing up when I was a kid, that's all I wanted to do is go in the military. And, going up there and playing a team like this, it's going to be special, just with the day in general. But with the team, we know they're going to play hard. And, we have a work cut out for us.
With 3 games left, what are the goals that this team has set forth here now throughout the rest of the season?
Take it one day at a time. We can't worry about North Texas right now. We can't worry about Temple right now. All we have to do is worry about having a Wednesday practice that's good. If we take our mind and think too far ahead, then, we won't get better. And, we just separating ourselves from that end goal and just going to work.
Jacob, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Best of luck this weekend and throughout the rest of the season. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for having me.
The SMU Mustangs are the outright American Athletic Conference champions.
The number 2 nationally ranked SMU Mustangs went undefeated at home during the regular season, and they earned the number 1 seed in the 2023 American Men's Soccer Tournament. They also earned the respect of the conference head coaches, picking up 5 of the major awards. First, though, the Offensive Player of the Year goes to Memphis forward Lineker Rodriguez dos Santos. The junior led the conference in goals, points, and shots. He scored at least 1 goal in 6 of the 8 conference regular season matches and had a total of 12 goals through 15 games. The Defensive Player of the Year was awarded to SMU's Matt Westergrain. The junior anchored a back line that led the conference in shutouts with 8. The spark plug in the midfield looked no further than SMU's Bailey Sparks. The junior finished tied 3rd in the conference in assists with 5 and averaged just over 84 minutes per match. The Mustangs keeper Cole Johnson got the nod for Goalkeeper of the Year. The senior led the conference in shutouts and save percentage. In 15 matches, Johnson allowed just 10 goals and made 33 saves. The Rookie of the Year goes to the Mustang midfielder Niv Berkovitz. The freshman played in every match, starting 12 of the 15. He also had 5 goals on the season and added an assist. And finally, the SMU coaching staff, led by head coach Kevin Hudson, earned the Coaching Staff of the Year honors after leading the Mustangs to a 12-1-2 overall record and the outright regular season conference title. Action from the men's soccer tournament continues with semifinal action on Thursday night and the championship match on Sunday. All of those available to you on ESPN+. Be sure to visit our website for more information. In American volleyball, we've got just 2 weeks left of the regular season, 13 matches happening this weekend. And basketball is back. All 28 of our teams, men's and women's, are in action this weekend. And we hope to see some hoops plays in top plays here next week. But this week, lights got brighter in the postseason as players stepped up in big-time moments of our men's and women's soccer tournaments. And we've got 3 plays from the pitch. But first, we start on the gridiron at number 5, South Florida at Memphis. The Tigers leading by 3 with 13 minutes to play. It's the next man up. Freshman quarterback Tevin Carter in for an injured Seth Hennigan. On the very first play for Carter, he finds an open Rock Taylor. Taylor sheds off a defender and takes off down the sideline. The Jets fully engaged as Taylor takes it all the way for a TD. And Memphis goes on to win 59-50. Coming in at number 4, we stay with the Tigers and Bulls, but this time in men's soccer quarterfinal action. Knotted up 2-2 with just over a minute to play. Memphis with the set piece opportunity as Logan Longo goes up and gets his noggin on it. Literally rising to the occasion to put his team up 3-2 as the Tigers survive and advance. At number 3, more soccer quarterfinal action, but we've got the women, Charlotte and East Carolina. Braylon Francher with the free kick from downtown, nearly 40 yards out with the wind at her back, and Francher comes up with her first goal of the season, and this one is a beauty. The 49ers offense had a day as they won it 5-0. Coming in at number 2, action from SMU Rice football. A minute 15 left to play. Rice down 5 with an opportunity. Shotgun formation for the Owls' backup QB Chase Jenkins as he fires this one deep for Luke McCaffrey, but Isaiah Wakobe calls game. The Mustang in the right place at the right time as he picks this one off to seal the win on the road. And over on the sideline, popping bottles at Club Takeaway as the Mustangs move on to 7-2 on the season. Finally at number 1, men's soccer, Florida Atlantic at the reigning champs FIU. First round of the tournament, scoreless here with 15 ticks left. Both teams in desperation. Arthur Vijay runs this ball down, and it's a first touch cross for Noah Kripta. The Owls with the upset as time expires. Just one shot on goal the entire match for Florida Atlantic, and it's the game winner as the Owls stun FIU on the road. Remember, if you ever see a top play happen live, you can always let us know on social media using the hashtag AmericanTopPlays and reach out to us at American_Conf. Crossover season is officially here, a full weekend of basketball, football, volleyball, and men's soccer. You're not going to want to miss any of this action. Be sure to visit our website, theamerican.org, for the full schedules. And next week, we will be breaking it all down on a brand new episode of All American. We'll see you next Wednesday.